In this episode, we move into a topic that sounds administrative at first, but turns out to sit right at the center of control, cost, security, and daily operations. Every organization depends on technology assets, yet many problems begin when those assets are not fully known, not tracked well, or not managed with enough discipline across their full life. That is why information technology asset management, ITAM, matters so much for anyone studying for the Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA, certification. At its core, ITAM is the practice of identifying, recording, controlling, using, maintaining, and eventually retiring the hardware, software, and related technology resources that support the business. A beginner can think of it as the organization keeping a reliable picture of what it owns, what it uses, where those assets are, who depends on them, and what risks come with them. When that picture is clear, decisions improve. When that picture is blurry, the organization starts operating with hidden cost, hidden exposure, and hidden operational weakness. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. An asset, in this context, is anything with technology value that supports business activity and should be managed deliberately. That includes laptops, servers, storage devices, network equipment, software licenses, mobile devices, cloud resources, and sometimes even virtual systems or service subscriptions, depending on how the organization defines and governs them. Beginners sometimes assume an asset is only a physical object with a sticker on it, but that is too narrow for modern environments. Some of the most important assets are not boxes on a desk at all. A business application, a virtual server, or a paid software platform may be just as critical as a physical device because the business depends on it every day. What makes something an asset is not whether you can hold it in your hand. What matters is that it has value, cost, operational importance, and risk, and that the organization needs enough visibility and control to manage it responsibly over time. One of the first reasons ITAM matters is that organizations cannot govern what they do not know they have. If assets are missing from records, recorded inaccurately, or tracked only through informal habits, then leaders lose the ability to make informed decisions about security, maintenance, budgeting, support, and recovery. A company may think it has retired an old server while it is still running somewhere quietly, or may believe all laptops are encrypted when several older devices were never updated. These are not rare, dramatic failures. They are normal consequences of weak asset management. A beginner should recognize that asset visibility is not just a convenience for accountants or operations teams. It is a control foundation. When an organization has a dependable understanding of its technology assets, it can plan more accurately, respond faster, and reduce the chance that forgotten systems, unsupported devices, or unlicensed software create larger business or audit problems later. A strong asset management program begins with inventory, because inventory is the practical record that tells the organization what exists in its environment. That record should identify important details such as the type of asset, its location, its owner or responsible group, its status, and its relationship to business use. Inventory does not have to be flashy to be valuable. Its strength comes from being current, accurate, complete enough to support decision-making, and governed by clear processes rather than occasional guesswork. Beginners often imagine inventory as a one-time counting exercise, but real asset inventory is a living record that changes as technology is purchased, assigned, moved, upgraded, repurposed, and retired. If the inventory is only updated during rare cleanup efforts, it quickly loses credibility. From an audit viewpoint, the inventory matters because it provides evidence that the organization understands the resources it relies on. Without that evidence, other control activities become weaker because the organization is trying to manage an environment it cannot fully describe. Ownership is another essential idea because assets need accountability, not just visibility. An asset may belong financially to one department, be supported by another team, and be used by a third group in daily work, which means responsibility can become unclear unless roles are defined deliberately. A beginner should separate ownership from simple possession. The person using a laptop is not always the person responsible for ensuring it is tracked, updated, and returned when appropriate. In the same way, a business unit may rely on an application without being the group that maintains its infrastructure or licenses. Good ITAM helps clarify who approves acquisition, who maintains records, who supports the asset, who uses it, and who decides when it should be replaced or retired. Auditors care about this because unclear ownership leads to predictable problems. Patches get missed, renewals lapse, devices are lost without follow-up, and unsupported systems stay active because everyone assumed someone else was taking care of them. The asset lifecycle is one of the best ways to understand this subject because it shows that management is not a single event, but a continuing process. Assets are planned, acquired, deployed, used, maintained, changed, reassigned when necessary, and eventually retired or disposed of. Each stage creates different control needs. During planning and acquisition, the organization should think about business need, cost, compatibility, support, and risk. During deployment and use, it should ensure proper configuration, assignment, tracking, and protection. During maintenance, it should handle updates, repairs, renewals, and performance issues in a controlled way. During retirement, it should remove access, recover reusable value where appropriate, protect sensitive data, and update inventory records to reflect the change. Beginners sometimes focus only on the beginning of the life cycle because buying technology feels more visible than managing it. In reality, many of the most serious asset risks appear later, when older resources remain in use too long, are passed around informally, or disappear from attention without being formally closed out. Hardware asset management often provides the most obvious examples because physical devices are easy to picture. Laptops, desktops, printers, servers, storage devices, and network components all need to be identified, assigned, tracked, and supported in a way that matches business use. A laptop might seem simple, but questions quickly emerge. Who is using it? What data can it access? Is it still supported? Has it been moved? Was it repaired? And what happens when the user leaves the company? Similar questions apply to larger infrastructure devices, even if they sit quietly in a data center or hosted environment rather than moving from person to person. Physical assets also raise issues around loss, theft, damage, spare equipment, and environmental handling. An auditor examining this area is not just asking whether the organization owns some machines. The deeper concern is whether those machines are recorded accurately, protected appropriately, linked to responsible parties, and managed in a way that supports security and business continuity rather than creating operational blind spots. Software asset management adds another layer because software can be easy to duplicate, easy to overlook, and surprisingly difficult to govern well if records are weak. Organizations need to know what software is installed, what licenses they are entitled to use, where the software is deployed, whether support agreements remain active, and whether versions are still current enough to meet security and operational needs. A beginner might think this is mainly a purchasing issue, but software management affects far more than cost. Unsupported versions can create security exposure. Unauthorized software can introduce instability or compliance issues. And used licenses can waste money year after year. Overuse can create legal and contractual risk. Software also changes more quickly than hardware in many environments, which means records can become outdated fast if they depend on manual memory alone. From a CISA perspective, software assets matter because they combine financial accountability, operational reliance, and control exposure. The organization needs a realistic picture of what software exists and whether its use aligns with business need, license terms, and risk tolerance. Modern environments make ITAM more complex because assets are no longer limited to equipment inside an office or data center. Virtual systems, cloud services, remotely issued devices, subscription-based platforms, and externally hosted tools all create value for the business, and all still require oversight. Beginners sometimes assume that when technology shifts to a provider or platform model, asset management becomes someone else's problem. That is not really true. The form of the asset may change, and some responsibilities may shift, but the organization still needs visibility into what services it is using, who approved them, what data they handle, what costs they create, and how they fit into security and continuity expectations. In some cases, modern assets are actually easier to create than to govern because teams can activate services quickly without building physical infrastructure. That speed can be helpful, but it can also create sprawl, where the business accumulates tools, subscriptions, and environments faster than it can track them. Good asset management keeps convenience from turning into confusion. Classification is another important concept because not all assets carry the same importance or the same risk. Some assets support routine office activity, while others support critical operations, sensitive information, or regulated functions that the business cannot afford to lose. A mature organization does not treat every device, application, or service as equally important simply because all of them appear on an inventory list. Instead, it identifies which assets are critical, which handle sensitive data, which are essential to recovery planning, and which create greater compliance, operational, or financial exposure if they fail. A beginner can think of classification as the difference between knowing what you have and knowing what matters most. Both are important, but they serve different purposes. An inventory without classification may tell you there are 1,000 assets in the environment, yet still fail to tell you which 10 would cause the greatest harm if lost, compromised, or unsupported. Auditors pay attention to this because prioritization helps management apply stronger controls where the business impact is highest. Security and asset management are tightly connected because every security control depends on knowing what must be protected. If devices are unknown, if software is untracked, or if cloud services exist outside formal records, then access control, monitoring, patching, logging, and incident response all become weaker. A beginner might think security comes first, and asset management simply supports it in a minor way. The truth is that asset visibility is one of the conditions that makes security manageable at all. You cannot patch what you do not know exists. You cannot retire risky software if it is not recorded. You cannot investigate an incident well if the affected asset has no clear owner, no reliable history, and no known classification. This is why hidden assets often create outsized risk. They sit outside the normal patterns of control, yet still connect to users, data, and business processes. From an audit viewpoint, weak asset management often reveals itself indirectly through other failures, including stale systems, inconsistent updates, unapproved tools, and unclear accountability during incidents. Financial control is also part of this topic because assets cost money not only when they are purchased, but throughout their useful life. The organization pays for acquisition, maintenance, licensing, subscriptions, support, upgrades, storage, replacement, and disposal. If asset management is weak, costs rise in ways that are easy to miss. The company may renew and used licenses, replace devices early because records are poor, or keep paying for services that no one actively needs. It may also under-budget for replacement cycles and then face urgent unplanned spending when older assets fail all at once. A beginner should understand that asset management is not just about protecting technology. It is also about making sure spending aligns with real use and real value. Good records allow leaders to make smarter choices about what to buy, what to keep, what to consolidate, and what to retire. Auditors care because poor financial visibility around assets can indicate broader governance weakness, not merely sloppy bookkeeping. Retirement and disposal are especially important because many organizations focus hard on getting assets into use and much less carefully on taking them out of service. Yet the end of the life cycle can create serious risk if handled poorly. Devices may still contain sensitive data, software licenses may still appear active, network connections may still exist, and inventory may continue showing assets as live long after they should have been removed. A retired server that remains connected, a reused laptop with incomplete data wiping, or an application left running without business need can all create unnecessary exposure. Proper retirement means more than putting equipment in storage or deleting a line from a spreadsheet. It means decommissioning the asset in a controlled way, removing access, handling data appropriately, documenting the status change, and confirming that the organization no longer relies on it operationally. For CISA learners, this is a useful reminder that control failures often appear at the edges of a process. The last stage matters just as much as the first. From the auditor's perspective, ITAM is examined through questions of completeness, accuracy, accountability, and control effectiveness. The auditor wants to know whether the organization has a reliable inventory, whether important assets are classified and assigned properly, whether acquisition and retirement follow defined processes, and whether records support decisions about security, support, continuity, and cost. The goal is not to create a perfect museum catalog of every cable and accessory. The goal is to make sure the organization has enough trustworthy information to manage risk and support the business responsibly. If records are incomplete, if assets cannot be tied to owners, or if large differences exist between what is recorded and what is actually present, then management's confidence may be based on assumption rather than evidence. That is exactly the kind of gap CISA asks you to notice. Asset management seems simple on the surface, but it often reveals how disciplined an organization really is when it comes to governance. The central idea should feel clear and practical. IT asset management is the discipline that helps an organization know its technology environment well enough to govern it. It creates visibility into what exists, who is responsible, how assets support the business, what they cost, how risky they are, and when they should be maintained or removed. When it works well, the organization gains stronger security, clearer accountability, smarter spending, better support, and a more dependable foundation for operations and resilience. When it works poorly, hidden devices, forgotten software, unmanaged services, and unclear ownership begin to weaken many other controls at the same time. For exam preparation, remember that good asset management is not just keeping a list. It is maintaining a trustworthy picture of technology value and technology risk across the full life cycle, because that picture helps the business operate with far more confidence and far fewer surprises.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.